All I want to do is send a contact form without using PHP or any kind of server-side code. Today, I'm going to show you 2 ways to do that. Learning to code can be stressful and hard, and that's why I was proud to write the book, Breaking the Code, that gives you those 5 essential steps to landing that first software job. Pick up your copy today at Amazon or any other major outlet. So if you watched our tutorial video on what you need to put on your developer portfolio, and you actually followed our advice, you went out and hired a photographer, and you shot some action shots here of yourself in the coffee shop, preparing to rule the world with your code. You went through your about section, laid it out, talked about your skills, your life. You even went through the effort of building out full stack projects here that you can showcase to an employer during an interview. And you get down to the bottom and there's this thing called the contact form. Now, all you want out of this contact form is someone to send you a message if they're wanting to speak to you about a project or maybe even hire you for a job. And so when you go that, you may Google this, how do I send my contact form from my web page? Or if you're using a template, typically what they're going to ask you to do is install PHP or some kind of server-side processing for forms, but that's kind of how forms work. But what if you don't know PHP or you don't want to set up PHP? Is there a way that you could send this form from your page utilizing just JavaScript and HTML? What I'm here today to tell you is there is such a solution. And I'm going to show you 2 ways that you can send your contact form without having to set up PHP or C# or Node.js or any kind of server-side technology. We're just going to use HTML and JavaScript and get this contact form sent to your email box. The first thing we need to do is let's talk about what we're going to build. And so if you saw what I just showed you and you like this template, I've linked this template down here in the bottom. If you want to build your template using this, it's called Codex. You can find it on Theme Forest. But what we're going to build is I'm going to build a couple of forms. One of the forms we're going to build is this dark one here, and that's another template library that I found that I liked, and you can also, I'm linking it at the bottom. It's got some dark mode, it's got some light mode, and we're going to hook this form up to email.js. And then what we're going to do is we're going to build another form and we're going to hook this form up to Netlify. And this is another form library that you can get from Theme Forest called, I believe it's called I Am Forms. I've linked it down here in the bottom. And the reason I'm giving you a couple of type of templates that you could use if you need to jazz up your forms, you don't know how to lay them out, or something you want to look at, or something you want to add to your sites. But let's first look at how we'd wire this form up to Netlify. And so we're going to use VS Code to do all of our editing here, and I like VS Code for doing these kind of client-side projects. I like Visual Studio for some of the server-side stuff we do, but for today, we're going to use VS Code to do all our work. Now, if you look at our project up here, we've got our dark form over here. We also have this project here called Index, and that's that form that you're looking at right here. And so let's talk about how we would wire this up. I've kind of navigated to the section where we have our form here. And so you can have a standard form tag that you need. And this is all you really need to do. And when I show you this, you're going to see how ridiculously easy this is to do. So I've got a regular HTML form tag. I gave it a name and I called it Contact CF Netlify. This name's important because you want to name it something that you'll recognize in case you have multiple sites going to Netlify and you have multiple forms on your site maybe, and you don't know which form as which one. So this name, you need to know that you can recognize it so that you can identify it in the Netlify admin site. And we'll show you that in a second. The second thing that I need to do is I'm going to give it an action, and this may be a little bit different than they're used to, of what my success page is. So when I post this form, I'm going to take it to a success.html, and we'll watch that work here in a second. A lot of times when you're posting a form, the action is going to the server-side process, and that that server-side process is handling the form, doing validation, whatever it's doing, and then redirecting it to a success HTML or showing an alert window or something like that. But in this case, our action goes to a success page. Our method is post, and then my code type is I went ahead and did a multi-part form data because Netlify forms will also allow us to do uploads and handle that all seamlessly on their side. But all you have to do this is this. You just type in data-Netlify and then equals true. And that's it. In order for this to work, I actually have to publish it up to Netlify because Netlify is actually doing the processing for us. So you can't really test this in your dev environment. You just have to trust that this will work. And so all we have to do is get this one little attribute in here, and that's it. If I go over to Netlify, and I'm not going to go over how to publish to Netlify. I have a video on that. And if you don't know how to publish the video, just watch the video. We'll have it probably linked up here in the corner. A recommended video for you. It's really easy to do, but basically what I have is I've got a GitHub repo, and when I commit my GitHub repo, this will deploy all of my code, and then my forms will just simply start working. So I've deployed it here, and if I run it, you can see that I've got a list here. I'm going to put a Spring cohort. I would like to attend Foundry. So this is a pretend form like you would if you want to register to come to our boot camp. You know, Bobby said it was okay. Something like that. And then it's here asking for to upload your resume. What we'll do today is I'm just going to upload maybe a picture or something like that. Maybe Doctor Strange's background here is kind of cool, or Marvel's Avengers. We'll go with Doctor Strange. So this can be any kind of document you want, and I'm just going to send this message. And look, it says, thank you for responding. We'll be back in touch. So it routed us back to our form processing. So let's look over here and see what happened on the Netlify side. So this is the Netlify admin site. You got to have an account and you got to log in to look at it. So I can look at, and you can see here, it found my form, and then it said, here's some verified submissions. I would like to attend Foundry. Bobby said it was okay. And we can look at this, and right here we also have a link to the object that was uploaded. Now this could have been a resume, a Word doc, or whatever. And you can see here, in fact, uploaded. And there's our Doctor Strange Sanctum Sanctorum. But it didn't send to my email like I promised. So like, how would we do that? So let's look through how we could get this actually to our email. So we're going to go back here, and I'm going to go to my forms settings and usage. And in here, I've got my forms setting right here. And I've also got form notifications. Get notified by email. You can hook it into Slack, or you can use any kind of webhook to integrate it into other services. For today, we're just going to set it up via email because that's all we want to do. And so I want to listen for any new events, any new event form submission. And I'm going to use my Gmail account here, Cade6Lives, and any form. I could do any form here, or I can specify the form that I want this one to live to. And that's why we need to know what these form names are, because what that does is means that we could, if we have multiple forms and like different people that we wanted this to be routed to, we could use aliases, or one form goes here, another form goes there, and we can use different email addresses, different webhooks, different whatever. Or we could say every form goes to cade6lives@gmail.com. But for today, let's pick this specific form and save it. So now every time we get a submission, we absolutely should get Cade6 lives in our Gmail account. So I've got my Gmail account right here, and you can see there's nothing in it. I don't use this, so don't send me emails here. And I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to fill this form out again. But this time I'm going to change the message so we show it's not magic. And I'm going to say, does Cade6 is Cade6 really alive? Something like that. Just something fun. If you don't know who Cade6 is, he's just a guy from Destiny. So I'm going to upload a different picture here. I'm going to upload the Marvel Avengers picture here. And get this spelled right. Boom, I'm going to send a message. Now what should happen if I did it correctly is I should see an email in here. And look, it came in. And see how fast that came in? And I can look in here, and now I get this email from Netlify. It says Bobby Davis, email right here. This is where it's from, spring cohort. I would like to attend Coder Foundry. Is Cade6 really alive? And we also got our picture. So that's how real easily that you can use Netlify to submit forms. Now you may be asking yourself a question, when should I not do this, or how does this really work? And even pricing. I won't go over pricing today because that could change when you're watching this in the future. But in general, if you're getting like 100 form submissions per month, it's going to be free. And that's what's great. If you're getting a bunch of form submissions, they are going to charge. But hey, if you're getting a bunch of form submissions, that means you're getting requests for work. So it shouldn't be a problem to do that. But if you're just looking for work, and if you get 100 submissions during a month, this will be absolutely free to you. Now, what's the downside of this? The only downside really is that you have to be published in Netlify for this to work. And you also can't really format the message coming back to your email box. Now, maybe that's not a big deal, but it could be. Or maybe you don't want to use Netlify. You want to use something like GitHub Pages or Heroku or something else. What would you do then? Okay, so let's look at how we could use something called Email.js, a different service, and we'll utilize a different form to show how we could post to this service where we can be agnostic towards our hosting vendor. Hey, if you're liking this video, please remember to subscribe, hit the like button, and hit the little bell to get notified of all of our future great content. Okay, so let's talk about the next service we're going to do here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to wire this form up with our dark form, but I'm going to use something called Email.js. Now, Email.js is a service that allows you to send email directly from your forms with no JavaScript, very similar to what we just showed you. It's a little bit more setup, a little bit more code, but it's actually really easy, and the pricing is pretty good. So like, I think here, if you get 200 monthly requests, then it's free, and you get 2 email templates. We'll talk about what those are. And so there is some limits here, but if you're getting 1,000 monthly requests, you're going to pay $4 a month. So it's not expensive, and if you're getting that many requests, something's really going good with your portfolio. So let's talk about like how this works, what we need to do, and to get it working. So let's jump into VS Code here. The template I'm using is fairly complex. It's got a lot of code in here, but I created a section here called Email.js. So in general, what you need to do is add some client-side JavaScript to your website, and you get that client-side JavaScript from Email.js. So it's really easy to do. It's kind of bulletproof for you to do this. So what I'm going to do is show you, and we're going to fill out this Email.js config section here, and let's get it up and running. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to my Email.js, and I've logged in here, and I'm going to click on integration. Now, this is blurred out right here, but in general, they're going to give you what your user ID is. Okay, and this is all you need to do. And I'm going to use the browser section to do this. Okay, you can use npm if you're familiar with that, but this is ridiculously easy to do. So I'm just going to cut and paste this code from here, and then I'm going to put that into my email config section right here. So what this is doing is, first thing first is we're installing the email.js library, and I'm using their CDN to do it. You can bring it locally if you want. And then it's creating something in JavaScript called a anonymous function, which means a function that doesn't have a name. And this is going to run when the page loads. So this function calls email.js.init and passes your user ID to that. So your user ID has to be correct, and you get that from the integration page. Super easy to do. And that'll set it up so that you can then in turn process your forms with email.js. So what's the next thing that we need to do? So the first thing you need to do is set up an email service. And I've already set it up in here. But what you do is you can set up a personal email service and you just connect it to the Gmail account that you want. It's kind of cool, right? Now you can add all kinds of different kind of services in here. You can even use these transactional services like Mailgun, Mandrill, or SendGrid. If you've used some of these before and that's what you're using, you can definitely set it up through email.js. And so whereas with Netlify, you'd have to use a webhook and maybe a little bit more work. Here you can use Outlook. You can use a different kind of personal services. So plenty options there. And I just set up Gmail here, and I'm going to use that CADE6 email that we're doing. And I just hit connect, and it goes through my connection process real easy. The thing that I did notice here that I want you to set up or understand is that this service ID, just hit the search here and allow it to generate a service ID for you. I had a little bit of issues when I was trying to make my custom one. Maybe I did it wrong. I'm not really sure. But like in general, I think this must be unique across the platform. So make sure that you have let it generate it. And then just click update, and it'll send you a test email to verify it. The next thing that you can do is set up a template. Okay, and we can look in here and you can create a template, but this is fairly easy to do. So if you're familiar with other kind of template languages like React or something like that, these double brackets is going to insert values from the form with the same name. So if we look at our code, and we go back on up here and we look into our form, you can see inside my form, my input values. This one's called name, this one's called email, this one's called phone. Then I had one called cohort, and then I had one called message. And then I also have a submit button right here. Okay, and that's critical that I have a type submit button because the JavaScript is going to listen for that event. And we're going to get to that JavaScript just in a second. So let's go back over here, and you can see how this is all wired up. And you can see now I have double bracket name, and that name has to match the name in the other form. So you can see here message is called message in the form in the HTML, and we call it the same thing here. And that's so that it knows where to put the information and what to insert here. As you can see here, now we have complete control over the message that is sent. We have a really robust templating system. I'm just showing you the basics here, but you can put a lot of links in here. You can put pages, you can put images. There's a lot of things you can format this whole HTML here. Your attachments will also ride along here when they come in. And so this will allow us to also take attachments. So what you need to do is set up an email service and then a contact template, and make sure the names match the values in your form, and you're good to go. Okay, so how do you wire up your form? All right, so let's look at some settings here. I also want to go over one more thing too. This is another kind of safety check here. that I really like about email.js is that you can restrict forms to a certain domain. So that means if your user ID got out in the wild or you lost your password, these would only be accepted from your domain, and someone couldn't like cross post and kind of run up your bill with email.js. So this gives you another kind of security point, and I like that. I think that's really great. So we also can look at the documentation here, a lot of documentation and like how you build this out, but I'm going to show you how we can build this out. So I've went over with the JavaScript, but we also need to look into like how do we embed this into our forms so that it actually works. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to use this email.js send function here. Okay, and you can see it just takes your service ID and your template ID. And so let's just do that code real quick. So I'm going to write another script in here. Right here in this one section in here, and I'm going to say window dot onload, because when I load my form, what I want to do is I want to set up a listener for this form. Okay, so I'm going to create another anonymous function. Okay, so now this is an anonymous function that's going to run when the page loads. And I'm going to say document.getElementById, and I'm going to pass it the name of my form. And it's CF, I think it's CF contact form. We will check that. So I'm going to add an event listener, and then I'm going to put it on submit. And then when that fires, I'm going to write another anonymous function. And I'm going to pass it event and close it up and bracket this thing. Okay, so now we're into another event. So put some code in here. So the next thing I want to do is I actually want to send the form with email.js. And this is all we got to do is email.js, and we should already have a hook to it because we initted it up top. And we want to say send form. And I'm going to cut and paste my service numbers in here. Your service numbers and templates will be different than mine. And then I pass this variable. This is the actual form values that's going to be submitted to this function. Okay, and so that sends it. Pretty easy. And that's all you really need to do to fire this up. Now, what I did was I wanted some type of notification sent back to the user, and I use Suite Alerts. You could use a regular alert if you wanted to. But I wired up Suite Alerts in here. If you want to know how that works, maybe I'll cover that in a future episode, or you can just look up Suite Alerts. I'll link it up in here in the bottom. I'm just going to cut and paste what I did here. It just basically gives me an icon, a thank you, and your message is sent. We'll get back to you shortly. It's just a better kind of alert page. And then the final thing that I want to do is I want to get element by ID again. I'm going to pass in the CF contact form. And what I'm going to do is just clear the form because I'm not navigating off the page, and just do that with reset. And that is it. So what's cool about this is I didn't have to really change my my HTML at all. I mean, it's all happening where we add this event listener, and then what happens when that event listener fires, it calls email.js to send the form. And that's all we have to do to make this work. And that's it's kind of cool. So if I did that right, that should work. So let's just test it out. So I'm over here and I've got a contact form. And so here, and we're going to say, I want to come to the cohort. And email.js test, just so you can see kind of and we just hit send. And you can notice it fired off my suite alert, which is kind of cool. And if we go to my Gmail account, it should be in here. And you can see here's the Netlify one, and this is the new one. And you can see here it says, hello, Coder Founder. You got a message from Bobby L. Davis. I want to come to the cohort, email.js, Spring cohort. I got a phone number in here. That's going to be blurred out for the video. And then my email address. And then, and that's it. And so you can see here now, we have now, with just a little bit of code right here, which is the same for everyone, you can now send email or send a contact form to your email box, either using Netlify or email.js. Now, be asking yourself, one of the reasons that I would use email.js? And again, it's like if you don't want to use Netlify, or you need more control over how it's presented, maybe you want to use more transactional services like a MailChimp or something like that, email.js would be the solution for you. If you don't want to set up a server, email.js works really nicely. The pricing between Netlify Forms and email.js are kind of the same. I think the complexity to set up, while different, they're both equally as easy to do. Once you do this once, it's very easy for you to do. So that's how you can send forms from your portfolio page or a customer's website. If you're doing freelance work, anything like that, and you just want to send in a simple contact form, check out Netlify or email.js. Hey, are you trying to learn how to code, but you need a teacher, a coach, or a mentor? Consider Coder Foundry. Join our next cohort. Go to coderfoundry.com/apply. We can get you ready to get that first software job.